Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Perry Holly, a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator and Coach.
And I'm Chris Cody, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. As we get started, if you want to download the learner guide that Perry and the team have created for us, I'd encourage you to visit maxwellleadership.com/podcast. Also, you can learn more there about some of our coaching, some of the training that we're doing with organizations. Fill out a form, and our team would love to follow back up with you. Well, today's topic is how leaders move from good to great. And there's a book, about good to great. We're going to talk today a little bit about how do leaders do that? How are you a good leader? Are you a great leader? How do you move the needle to become a great leader? There's so many factors that really distinguish a good leader from a great leader. And some of the research that we've done and Perry's looked at by Jack Zenger and Joe Folkman, some of the factors are improve communication effectiveness, encourage others. We talk about that on here, to grow and to improve, be a role model, be a champion for your team, recognize when change is needed. Otherwise, you'll become irrelevant. And then finally, the last one we have on here is improve your ability to inspire and motivate those that are in your influence.
Lots of good stuff. And Dr. Zenger and Dr. Folkman doing this research, what they did was they took 360-degree feedback data and looked the critical skills of leaders who are progressing most in their leadership, and they pulled these topics out. The one that I thought, and it's so key to what we talk about anyway, that I thought we should maybe go a little deep on today, was about communication effectiveness. I think how you communicate really affects your reputation as a leader. And I want to get practical.
I love it.
So we'll talk about some of the concepts, but how do we actually get practical about that? And I'd like you to walk away from this time you invest with other day to one or three things that you can work on between now and with working with your team. So
that's
is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So the first way to increase communication effectiveness is to become a better listener.
Okay, hang on a minute. I just heard with those radios clicking off, and
that's right. That's right. No one wants to do that.
I know. They all think I'm a great listener. What, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm a fantastic listener.
As my wife says all the time, right? I know you hear me. You're just not listening to me. So I think that there is room for all of us. And what's really key about this is that we often ask a question in some of our training, and we say, we play this would you rather, game in essence. What's more important, to be a better communicator or an effective listener? And then we challenge them. We say, well, whichever one you pick, right? You have to pick this or that. You can't use the other word as you're describing, why you picked the answer that you did. And it's always fun because especially when you get to this one and you talk about communication and everybody's right, it's a trick question. They go, well, I can't do that because they're one and the same. Listening is part of communication, and they're spot on, and we do it and we have fun with it. And we talk about how, really there's a two-way pathway in regards to communication. And that second pathway is to really become a better listener. You can be a great communicator, but if you're not listening to what you need to communicate, then it's not going to be very effective, or vice versa. You can be a great listener, but if you don't have the ability to communicate. And so I love that we're going to dive into this and really unpack how do we increase our communication effectiveness. And the first one is to become a better listener.
Well, I find that listening is the number one way to show you value someone. You're giving something you can't get back, which is time to do that. I think when a leader invests time in actively listening to their people, that it demonstrates respect. You begin to understand team members' points of view. You begin to understand how they think. I just think that when you begin to truly appreciate a team member's perspective, you do that through, you can add so much to your own thinking by just listening and asking good questions and listening actively to what your team members are telling you. So most people think they're better listeners than they really are, as we were joking about a minute ago. So I really wanted to get practical about, are there some things even if you think you're okay listening, do you think you could get better? I know I could. And so what are some of those ideas? And I thought we could bat that about.
I think that when you become intentional about improving your listening skills, it will absolutely increase your connection with people, your influence with people. We joke all the time about our spouses who are our only two listeners to the podcast about how you and I could do a much better job of listening. And I think it's something that if we all slowed down and we remove distractions, we could all get better at. But man, we live in a time and a pace where things are moving faster than they've ever moved before. Social media and devices are everywhere, and it's a problem. I even think about the fact that I have a couple of nephews that are staying with us this week, and we love it. We have fun with them, and so I begin to watch the difference in generations and the influences that are in their life take away from their ability to listen. And so, man, I think this is going to be something as we move forward in organizations that we need to continue to focus on. And so here are a couple of things practically to really look at. We're just talking about electronic devices. Put your phone away when you're having a conversation with somebody. There's nothing worse than having a conversation with somebody and their phone is right there and they keep glancing at their phone and it's buzzing and keep going off. Man, if it's gonna be doing that, that's not a problem. Just try to put that away. Remain in eye contact with the individual. Have that connection with them while you're listening. Give them your complete attention. I'll never forget when I was much younger, someone said the greatest thing that you could do is when you're listening to somebody is for them to think, holy cow, there's a lot of stuff going on right now and it seems like nothing else matters but our conversation, because you're giving them complete attention. And then don't interrupt them. Oh man, this is one of the things that just bothers me, is that when I am speaking, or I am watching a conversation and somebody just keeps interrupting a conversation, allow them to finish that. And then finally, take notes from what you're hearing from them. I'll never forget, I was at an event one time and John was speaking. And so we were there. It was a client of ours, and it's a CEO of a very large company. And John was interviewing this CEO on leadership up on stage. And John was asking the questions and then just feverishly taking notes, listening intently, but taking notes. And so we were on the ride home, to the airport. And I said, John, talk to me a little bit. I haven't seen you do that before. Talk to me a little bit about what was behind you taking notes and during that interview. And he said, oh, I'm working right now on becoming a better listener. I'm looking at becoming better engaged. And when I find myself having to think about what they're saying to be able to take notes, it makes me listen better. And I thought, that's interesting. And so taking notes allows you to do that. The other thing that I think is key here is that, yes, this will help you from a communication standpoint, but all of these things that we have laid out here, they're going to add value to the person that's talking to you. They're gonna think, man, I'm important. I'm engaged in this conversation. So just some practical ways to do that to improve your listening.
I listened to you talk about, put my phone away, but you also need to master your wrist. I am so tired of people.
Oh, that's so good.
While I'm talking to someone, they look at their watch, but they're not checking the time, although they may be, and which sends me a very bad message.
Yeah,
but
it may be worse. Yeah.
I don't have to pull out my phone. I can just look at my wrist because that's where all my. Oh no, don't do that. And I was also the skill of curiosity is one that many leaders need to work on. Is that when someone's talking to me, can I become curious about I'm curious. What is the point they're trying to make? I'm curious. How does this apply to what we're talking about? I'm curious. And it just makes me a little bit deeper in my thinking and listening. And then also, I got some coaching on this I'm trying to formulate, instead of my response to what you're saying, I'm trying to formulate what's the best question I can ask when you're done. And thought, before I give my response, I need to ask one question. It could be a follow-up, it could be something, but I also like little phrases that help me. I use, tell me more. What happened next? And then what did you do? And most people are just floored that you would encourage them to keep talking, because they're used to people waiting for them to take a breath so they could jump in and talk. And instead I said, well, tell me more. Yeah. What happened next?
I also hear you say quite a bit lately, which I love, which is I have a point of view on that. What's your point of view?
I love that.
right?
do.
And I love that. I love how you
Yeah.
position that so that you can continue to listen more what they're doing.
Leaders, you know better than anyone that growth is essential if you want to make tomorrow better than today. But fitting growth into your calendar takes intentionality and self-discipline. So, let Maxwell Leadership help make your growth achievable. You're invited to join thousands of worldwide leaders in using the Maxwell Leadership Growth Plan. The Maxwell Leadership Growth Plan provides you with convenient and easy to implement leadership resources, including video lessons from John Maxwell, all at your fingertips. Available in our Maxwell Leadership app or online, you'll be coached by many well-known leadership experts that will help you achieve your growth goals. You can even listen to this podcast right there in the app. Check it out for free today at growth.maxwellleadership.com. That's growth.maxwellleadership.com.
Another way improving communication effectiveness and raise your leadership influence, become intentional about your nonverbals, like body language, facial expression, tone of voice, all the ways that people are reading you as they're communicating. We talk about you're always making people feel something. What is it you make people feel? So when someone's talking to you, or when you're talking to someone, let's keep it on listening. Someone's talking to you. What are you doing with your face? What are you doing with your body language? Are you facing them? Are you facing the door? Are you, rolling your eyes? Are you get your hands on your hips? There's positives and negatives about all that, but I think it really affects so much about how people feel. Are they being heard, or are you just tolerating and waiting for your time to speak?
Yeah, this is so good for me personally, just to even go through this, because I'll get lazy at times listening, and I know this, but maybe my actions don't necessarily show that. And so again, we're in the leadership space. This is what we do every day. We're in the communication space, and yet you're challenging me with some of the things that we're talking about here today. And so as you're listening to this podcast, I hope that you're being challenged as well to become a better listener. One other thing in regards to this is, do you have empathetic communication style?
Mm-hmm.
You guys know what I'm talking about. There are those that do and those that don't when it comes across that way. And empathy in your communication means that you have the ability and you can relate to the individual, and maybe not exactly what they're going through, right? But you can get into that place with them, and you can be empathetic during a conversation. And when you do this, it no doubt increases your ability to connect with people, and then will increase your influence as a leader. When you were just talking about mind your face, I love it when you say that, right? Like what is that face telling people? Yeah. I was having this conversation just recently, within the last week, with a leader, and we were talking about, as conversations happen, the facial expressions will change. And somebody said to this individual, like, what's going on with the face? Like, and he said back to, we've worked together for how long? Like, this is just, and so they kind of started laughing about it. And then he said, oh, let me tell you another funny story about kind of the mind your face as you're talking about this and listening. He said that some of his team want the masks to be a policy of what they have to wear while they're working, because it covers his face and they don't have to look at his facial expressions while he's listening or communicating to the team. That's the power of what you're talking about here in connecting through communication. And whether you have empathy or not is mind your face. Do you smile? Do you welcome people? Are you approachable or are you not?
Yeah, empathy versus sympathy.
Yeah. Oh,
can I feel for you, or do I feel sorry for you? That people can tell if you're relating to them. Another great way to improve your communication effectiveness was to master this skill. I call it a skill of providing regular feedback to those you work with. And when you provide constructive feedback, you communicate that you care about me, that you want to see me grow and improve. And I think, unfortunately, many leaders shy away from this because they fear the conflict it might cause. They don't want to give bad news. I don't know I've heard many reasons for this, but Done correctly, I believe that feedback can be your friend, is a great way to really find the greatness in other people. And so when you say my communication style, if you expect that when you're with me and we're performing in our role, that I'm going to give you feedback and that I expect feedback from you, do you think that makes raises my reputation as a leader? I think so. I think people turn to expect, say, Perry, what'd you think? And that's when I'll use, well, I have a point of view, but what did you think? Because I want to hear what they think first, but get practical on that one.
I love that. So let's talk about this feedback. We've all heard of the feedback sandwich, right? Like, and the reason that we really do it, and this is so good, is that we really do that because it makes us feel better about giving the feedback.
That's what I've learned, yes.
They know what you're doing, by the way, right? And so they probably have their guard up even more, and they're not even listening.
And explain the feedback sandwich.
So where you end up giving somebody something positive, then some constructive feedback, and then you close with a positive comment.
And we can get out as quickly as possible.
And then you get out as quickly as possible.
Now I feel better about myself.
Yeah, that's right. And so, man, I gave him 2 positive things, 1 negative. And so to your point here is that, man, yeah, absolutely. I think that is more for you than them. So I've heard you teach and talk about getting away from the feedback sandwich and talking more about a feedback conversation.
That's right.
And the feedback conversation goes like this. As close to an event that you've witnessed as possible as a leader, share something that you thought the person did well, then share something you think they might have done better, and then ask the question, what you were just talking about a minute ago, which is, what did you think about that? Mm-hmm. So you're creating this dialogue versus giving statements on that sandwich, and you're inviting them to have a conversation. And that is a much different approach to a topic than just having the feedback sandwich.
Oh, it's worked amazing for me is that, hey, that sales call, I thought you did a great job on engaging the client, the prospect in a conversation. One area I thought you could have improved on with how you presented our value proposition. What do you think? And the salesman looks right at me and says, no, I thought it was great. What, are you kidding me? I go, well, I thought some confusion on the customer's face and I was just observing, but maybe I'm wrong. How did you see it? And he goes, well, now that you mention it, I did get a little tangled up, and I was very vague on a couple of things, and I really wasn't sure how to. I said, "Well, tell me, how can we have done it differently?" And now we're in a beautiful place. I'm having a great conversation, and the salesman, what salesman ever did this? Is hey, would you do a role play with me on that? Nobody ever asked for a role play. Yeah. I thought, yeah, let's role play that for a moment. How could give me the value prop to do that? So. Another area I think can improve your reputation as a leader and increase your influence and increase your communication is, and we talk about it a lot here, but I think it really applies, is those 3 questions that every follower, every person you're listening to is asking about you while you're leading, while you're influencing them. Do you remember the 3 questions?
No.
Okay. You do.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, absolutely. So what they want to know is, hey, are you going to help them? Do you care about them? Yep. And can they trust you?
Yeah, love these.
And this is a staple of John and really when he talks about leadership and connecting with people. And so these are a great way to frame your question. Now, what we want you to know is, man, if you can answer yes, or these questions are being answered yes about your leadership, then your communication is in a pretty good place, and you have the ability to increase your influence and your reputation as a leader. The getting practical behind this and why we put this in here is, if the answer to any of those 3 questions is no, then dig into that. Why is it no? Why is it that it is no? What can you be doing or working on to move that from a no to a yes? They're simple questions, and it's a simple answer, yes or no. If it's yes, hey, keep trudging, keep getting better. But if it's no, we really want you to kind of unpack and look into that.
Yeah, fantastic. And then finally, I just thought that, John's new book out on the 16 undeniable laws of communication, I was really taken by a truth in one of the laws there. Was that the law of credibility, that, great communicator knows that you're not the main attraction. It's all your communication is about others. And if you make it about yourself, if you're talking in a way that makes it about you, you're not making it meaningful for others. So I thought for me that was a great reminder, is that in my communication, is it about others? Am I talking to other? Am I listening with respect to others? Lots of things that make up a great communicator, but being credible in your communication by the life you live and the way that you present yourself, and then you make it about others, goes a long way.
Goes a long way. Well, as we wrap up, remember, we started this by talking about how leaders move from good leadership to great leadership. And I love that you said, hey, let's just take one and let's get really practical. What's interesting is that one, when we work with organizations, we go through a discovery process, and no doubt about it, in the top three every time, and you know this, you've been on a lot of discovery calls, is, man, listen, we got to get better at communication as leaders. We have leaders that don't do a good job of communicating. As an organization, we don't do a good job of communicating. So here were just a couple of very practical, simple ways. Go back, listen, have a little bit of an assessment, check yourself on these areas that we brought to you. And I promise you, if you work on becoming a more effective communicator by some of the tips that we gave you, you will go from being a good leader to a great leader.
Fantastic. And a reminder, if you like that learner guide, you'd like to leave a question or a comment, or you want to learn more about our offerings and how you can contact us, you can do all of that at maxwellleadership.com/podcast. We love hearing from you and very grateful you'd spend this time with us. That's all today from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.